Hello, lovelies. I started a conversation over with the mailing list subscribers last week, and when I sent the initial email talking about this issue, I honestly expected to get hate for it. It was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but I just can't keep my mouth shut anymore. And I was really surprised with the feedback. A lot of you reached out saying that you not only agreed, but sharing your stories and your experiences. And I got some amazing stories from y'all and very personal and in some cases, pretty awful personal stories. And so I decided to come and make a video to talk about this in a more public setting. So the TV show Bridgerton, based on the book series by Julia Quinn. A lot of people hate it for a lot of different reasons. And most of those reasons I think are totally subjective, like their personal preference. The reason I hate it and I can't get past it is because of the virgin trope. So the first season definitely follows the virgin trope story arc. And this is a trope that exists mainly in historical fiction, but you see it in like fantasy romance, you see it in contemporary romance, you see it in a lot of places, but its roots are based in the historical romance subgenre. The virgin story trope is one that centers on a main character who's a female virgin, and it follows her being introduced and awakened to sexuality via a usually significantly older and much more experienced man. And there's nothing wrong with writing virgins. There's nothing wrong with being a virgin. The reason I hate this trope so much is because it turns someone's sexual inexperience into a plot point and really a fetish. So I grew up in a very conservative religious environment. It was like girls couldn't wear things that came above the knees. Like I wasn't allowed to wear sleeveless. I had to wear sleeves because, I wasn't supposed to tempt men, and like my collar had to be like up to here. Like you didn't even cut your hair because that was just women weren't supposed to have short hair. So the writers and producers of both the show and the original book series of Bridgerton are women, as are most of the writers of romance books. Overwhelmingly, they're female. So I'm not trying to pin this on men. I'm not even really trying to pin this situation on women, but it is a trope and an ideology I usually see enforced by women on women. When I was growing up in this very austere religious environment, I would hear things from older women. Like very rarely was it ever a man who said anything. It was like in my memory, like when I think of the times things were said to me, it was always these older women. One time someone said, like, if you have premarital sex, like it will destroy your life. Like she actually said that. There was so much shame that was heaped on women. And what does this have to do with the virgin trope? The virgin trope enforces the idea that women are more desirable and special because of their virginity. So growing up in this very austere religious environment, I heard a lot of times where a woman's virginity was very prized as something very special. And we were coming off the heels of the purity movement. Like the purity movement started out as a very noble enterprise. Like they were trying to do something good, but it got really out of hand and it unfortunately ended up hurting a lot of people. And one byproduct of this was just this overemphasis on purity, primarily for women. I had a lot of creepy experiences with like older women just being obsessed with whether I was a virgin, whether I was sexually active. Like this went on into my 20s and it was pretty creepy. And I really don't think it was any of their business to be asking me those things or to be thinking about those things in my life. But the part that was really hard for me and the part that made me so mad was when I would meet women who maybe had made choices that they didn't agree with now, like they regretted having partners that they'd had in the past, and they felt so much guilt and shame over that. And like, because they weren't pure anymore, that they were somehow not as good as someone who was inexperienced. And you see these women who are divorcees and they think, well, like that they have this idea and they think that they're used goods and they think that they're not as desirable as a woman who's a virgin. The worst one is when you meet someone who has been sexually assaulted or who has been molested even as a child. And sexual abuse already heaps so much shame and guilt onto victims, very well documented. I really hate how this ideology makes that even worse. One thing that was like super dumb was I've met women who were virgins and they like had this attitude where they like thought that they were better than the women who'd had sex. Like I thought it was so stupid, but it is a thing, believe it or not, in some of these circles. This may be coming from a very specific cultural approach. Like I came from a very conservative religious background. Other people may not see this at work in the world. I just really hate it when a character in a book has their virginity portrayed as their entire personality, and that is the whole plot of the book. I see this trope as peak misogyny in all the worst ways. I don't think either from a feminist perspective or a biblical perspective it's accurate, and I have a lot of problems with it. Anyway, so this is what I consider to be Bridgerton's unforgivable sin. This is what I consider to be the worst trope in all of the romance genre, and it would be very difficult to convince me otherwise. But if you disagree, like you're free to disagree. If you do agree, awesome, we agree. Let me know what you think in the comments. I love you all, and I will be talking to you later.